Money never sleeps, pal.
Hey there, welcome to Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and at what makes them do what they do. I'm Pete Townsend, your co-host of Money Never Sleeps, along with Owen Fitzgerald. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialists, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, it is highly advisable that you build a relationship with a team at Top Tier Recruitment. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. In this episode, we talk to Erin Grover, the co-founder of Altai Digital Capital, who are connecting investors to blockchain-based hedge funds and traders. Beyond what Erin is doing now to help investors make sense of the breakneck pace of development in digital assets, her background in media, the UN, and her grasp of languages makes for a great story. So we've pulled it all together in this week's episode of Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Here we go again. Welcome to Money Never Sleeps. We're recording today from the global headquarters of Norio Ventures. I'm Pete Townsend. We're here with Erin Grover, the co-founder of Altai Digital Capital, which connects investors to blockchain-based hedge funds and traders. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we met after an intro from Danny Lawler. Shout out to Danny from A-Quest Advisory in 2018. And we've been on quite an interesting journey together since then. But more on that later. So with the work that we've been doing together, Erin, I got a pretty good idea, obviously, about how you got to this stage of your life. Okay. But for our listeners, maybe just delve into your backstory to get us started.
Well, the backstory is very random and goes all around the world, but pretty much I am from the States, and I ended up working for the UN for most of my 20s and got tired of working in war zones like Afghanistan and places like Cambodia. Very intense.
Totally intense.
But it was a great adventure, and I learned a lot about international development. But I got burnt out and then went to Los Angeles to work in film because I'm a storyteller at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I did that for a little bit, and the Hollywood stereotypes are true. So I realized I didn't want to stay in that realm. So I kind of fell into digital marketing, which I always did anyway in one shape or another. But what happened was I started talking about Bitcoin on Facebook, and it was before the rise.
Yeah.
So when it did go up, all of a sudden everybody was coming to me like I knew something.
Yeah.
I was getting messages in private from women asking me, how do I do this? My boyfriend treats me like I'm stupid when I ask him, so I was hoping you could help me.
Right.
To
mansplaining.
Yeah, to having just different men too coming to me saying, can you help me to manage my crypto portfolio, because I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have, X amount. I had one person come to me with $500,000 worth of crypto. He's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help. Right. So this literally fell into my lap when crypto went up in 2017.
Yeah.
I made a small amount, enough that I could leave LA. So I packed up my Subaru and took my cute French bulldog Herbie around America. And I was posting on social media saying, we're coming to your town. And my friends would respond, and we would organize crypto wallet setup training.
Yeah.
And just kind of, crypto 101.
Yeah.
And pretty much we'd fill up the bars with computers. It was bars full of computers all around Christmas time. And it was the most surreal thing I've ever seen. So all the way from LA to Miami, up to Maine.
Wow.
I did these crazy kind of guerrilla crypto workshops. And at the same time, I was wanting to move to Ireland anyway. And it really had nothing to do with crypto.
Yeah.
But it all came together in an interesting way. So my family's from here, and I'm getting citizenship through them. But I went ahead and figured out Well, I realized the need to put my client funds onto trading algorithms, and it wasn't something that I could do in the States anyway.
That's kind of a big jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pretty much what happened was with the manual management and support of their wallets, really tech support. I mean, I know some people would say portfolio management, but it was really tech support of things that everybody wanted anyway.
Yeah.
So I realized I couldn't make money in the volatile market because I only made my money based on people's profits.
Yep.
So yeah, I met one company out of California, and long story short, ended up setting up Chorus 9 here in Dublin with trading algorithms that I licensed from that company in California.
Yep.
So a lot of lessons learned in my first
I'd say so.
first round of trading algorithms, which is a huge leap. And I never really knew what I was getting myself into. I just trusted it. I went with it. It was a little daunting, but I just felt like it was my path because it showed up.
Yep.
So then I realized the company structure wasn't the most efficient and it was not the most profitable. With that version of what I was doing, I was looking at going through the MiFID process, which can be at least €1 million to go through, maybe more.
Absolutely.
So I, kind of went on to a new version, and with the help of a number of people, including you, I figured out a new way to structure the current company, which is Altai Digital Capital, which I'm about to launch with. But pretty much it's more like placement onto other crypto hedge funds. So, I, along with the help of my team, have gone through great due diligence to make sure that the trading algorithms under this roof are legit and sound, and everything is still risky in crypto, but at least what we're doing now is all under the umbrellas of regulation and third-party auditing. So feels a lot more rooted and for the long term with what I'm currently doing. I will say what's really nice about this whole journey, and just one comment I had from a new client that made it all worthwhile, is that pretty much the client said, I don't have the time to do the due diligence. I don't know the people. I don't have the resources. And I mean, this has taken us like at least 6 months to get to this point. So this guy was so appreciative that we could provide him with this service. And that's what we're doing. We're just kicking the tires in an unregulated industry that's really scary and, full of scams. And, I would say, like, I don't know. I can't really give you an exact number, but I would say most of the crypto world is full of shady characters at this point.
Think if you look back at 2017, 2018, it was 8 out of 10 ICOs, or initial coin offerings, were either scams or they failed.
Yeah.
Right. Having that ability to, like you said, do the due diligence, understand the governance, understand the risk controls, all of those is a pretty big deal. Very interesting backstory, Erin. Thinking about this from the perspective of trying to put it into a few buckets, your 20s with the UN, right? And just saying that right off the bat is kind of like a big part of your introduction. It's like, oh, that's quite interesting, right? You speak French, Dari, Nepali, and English quite well. I must say, I understand kind of the film side coming out of kind of your UN experience there, and it makes sense. And I saw some documentaries there that you worked on, and then just this almost not necessarily random, but the serendipitous or opportunistic move into crypto, really guided just by your own human nature of trying to help others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that what that's now led to is just you having a a fluency in this space that a lot of other folks don't have, but also then just combined with your own human nature, right? These are things you don't typically find in the crypto space, and especially not in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I do want to say about the UN before we get into this a little bit more that I left the UN because I didn't feel like I was contributing to the world. I felt like I was participating and watching, but I didn't really feel like I was doing anything effective. It was a great learning experience, but the UN wasn't helping me to live up to any higher purpose.
Okay.
So I felt like it just wasn't efficient enough. And I feel like there's a lot of waste with funding and
big time.
And probably some more nefarious activities as well.
Absolutely.
So I also worked for the UN elections. And of course, during that time, I saw a lot of issues with ballot counting and ballot boxes getting tampered with, and people being clueless about how many ballots were actually, or votes were actually there. So just filling in numbers from the UN side. Like, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I learned about the blockchain, that was like one of the greatest moments of my life. I was like, oh my God, this could support a lot of those issues.
Absolutely.
One, with the funding, and two, with voting. So I should probably explain a little bit for people listening, but blockchain can support transparent voting that, of course, is in theory tamper-proof.
Yep.
Way more than plastic blue boxes
Absolutely.
Out in the middle of Afghanistan being hauled by donkeys and nomads, which is what the reality was.
Not that there's anything wrong with donkeys.
Or nomads, but yeah. So I prefer the blockchain to donkeys and Tupperware voting boxes.
Blockchain smells better. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, and then there's the issuance of funds. So I'm very happy to see over the past year that the UN actually has taken the blockchain on and they're running with it. Pretty much the UN is delivering funds or food rations to Syrian refugees through the blockchain. And it's to the point where they don't even have to touch the money. And of course, you can see the whole trail. So donors know where the money went.
Absolutely.
And the refugees can only get their food through a retina scan.
Yep. Yeah.
When the food is given. So
yeah. And this is worlds coming together here, Erin, and I want to talk about this in a minute, but you mentioned two things there that we've talked about on this podcast before with aid tech, who are helping to deliver aid to third countries through a blockchain-based technology infrastructure. Niall Dennehy was on, and he talked about being able to have a originating government that is delivering foreign aid, being able to, like you're saying, trace it all the way through to the actual end recipient, which is a big deal. Also on the blockchain-based voting, Bradley Tusk from Tusk Ventures, who was a former advisor to Michael Bloomberg, who said on this podcast that 99% of all the politicians he's ever met have one thing in mind, and that is, how do I get the next vote to get reelected, right? And I will take action based upon whether or not I will be able to get reelected. He is working on a blockchain-based voting venture in the U.S., which I thought was pretty interesting. In this space, Erin, I've talked about this before, is that if you're living in Ireland, it's such a small place, right? 5 million people. If you are in the digital asset / crypto / blockchain space, that's a small world as well, right? Combining the two together, being in Ireland and being in that space, are you ever surprised by the amount of people that you come across that know the person you just met an hour before?
I'm not surprised by it anymore.
No. I mean, before we started recording today, you talked about Bob Cornish. You were on a panel with him in Davos, and I'm like, I know him. Yeah. I've talked to him. He's an advisor to QPQ, and I'm also an advisor to QPQ.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This connectivity seems to naturally play into your own personality to begin with. Are you influencing this at all from the heavens above?
I have no idea what's happening.
Is there a big puppet thing happening here where all of us in this space are just being brought together by some universal spirit?
Probably. I think so.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like when I stop and get out of my own way and just let things flow, that my greatest work comes out, and it's not my choice. Like, I just go with it and things show up. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening now to the greatest extent that I have ever seen in my life. And I will go a little mystic on all of you because that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
But pretty much I feel like this all started here in Ireland.
Yeah.
I came here 3 years ago and went to my family's cave. They have a cave.
Yeah.
And it's on the island of Valencia. They were slate miners. And I was just feeling really bored and frustrated with life. Mm-hmm. Like, I did all this stuff in my 20s. Like, I felt like I did everything that I wanted to do and more and accomplished a lot. But I didn't really feel like I still didn't feel like I was contributing to the world. And I don't understand why I would be here if I'm not doing something in the world. Yeah. Like, I don't, it's like a waste of time for me, you know? So I was sitting at my family's cave and just having a moment and calling on my ancestors and asking for their support to show me what it is I'm here to do. Yeah. Because, like, honestly, like, we're going really mystic now. Death doesn't bother me. Like, I've lived a very full life. I was held at gunpoint by the Taliban. I almost died a number of times living in Afghanistan for 2 years. I'm not really fazed by the afterlife. Like, the world scares me more sometimes. So, I was
that's pretty deep.
Calling on my ancestors to really support me in what it is I'm here to do. And to give me something, like, please give me something to do. Yep. You know, and make it worth my while. And I left Ireland after that first 2-week trip here. I was in the airport waiting to fly back to LA. I got an email from a Bitcoin conference. Yeah. 2-day Bitcoin conference in LA, and they wanted me to do consulting on their marketing materials. It's like, huh. So I said yes. And the second I got off the plane in LA, I went to the office for that conference for a day, did the marketing materials. And I said, well, Bitcoin must be getting pretty big now. I really can't believe you're having a conference for it. Yeah. And the woman said, yeah, Bitcoin has done over 450 billion in transactions over the past 3 months.
Okay.
Oh, but I wasn't tracking the transactions in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just more the fascination of an alternate currency and blockchain. So that blew my mind, and then
here you are.
Since then, this is all that I've been doing.
Okay. I'm with you. Yeah, sometimes it takes that deep personal connectivity to something to really just inspire you, right? To move you ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. You've made a lot of hard decisions over the last couple of years. What's been the hardest one you've had to make?
Well, the hardest decision for me has been to stay in my power and to follow what I believe to be true. Yeah. In the face of adversity, and the adversity being a number of people that didn't agree with me. Yep. In the crypto space. Yep. And I don't want to call people out, so I don't want to give more details about the people or what it was around. But it really got down to how I want my clients to be treated and protected. Yep. And it was about make the way their funds were handled the priority number one. Right. The number one priority. Yep. Not the fancy technology, not the sexy blockchain terms.
Yep. Investor first.
Yeah, investor first. And I didn't get great
you didn't support. Get the warm fuzzy.
No, I didn't get a lot of love for that.
Yeah.
I found the people in my life who really believed in that and believe in what I'm doing, and that was the greatest gift.
Yeah.
So, and that group of people is still around me today, and it keeps paying off infinitely at this point. So I'm glad I took it, but it was scary because, I didn't get a lot of love on that. So that was the hardest decision for me over the past couple of years.
Okay. Yeah, that is a pretty big one, but now it seems like you've taken all those lessons learned and you've driven that into Altai.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And you've got a good cast of supporting characters around you. And I wouldn't even say supporting characters, they're just characters in their own right, but also some highly intelligent and well-experienced people as well that I just love to be around.
Yeah.
And maybe talk a bit about the folks that you're leaning on right now.
Well, I first and foremost have to thank the Akasha Innovation Hub and the Akasha Foundation. So for those of you who don't know about the Akasha Innovation Hub, it was set up here in Ireland by two Irishmen who believe in blockchain and have been solid diehard supporters for years. They partnered up with Mihai Alisi,
who was on episode 44 and 45 of this podcast.
Yeah, you're quite a hub. Mihai Alisi was one of the original co-founders of Ethereum and started the Akasha Foundation and is supporting multiple blockchain hubs around Europe, and hopefully it'll continue to grow beyond Europe. But I've been accelerated by Akasha.
Yeah.
And they're incredibly helpful, and I couldn't have done all of this without them.
Absolutely. Well, they'll be happy to know that there is a one-pager in draft called Startup Resources for Blockchain-Enabled Companies in Ireland. And in the accelerator/incubator section, we have the Akasha Hub listed. So helping to put the good word out about what those guys are doing, because it's a fantastic initiative that they're undertaking. In terms of some of the other folks out there that have been helpful to you, where are they now? Who's been some of your inspiration?
One of the greatest inspirations in my life is a man named Kali Baba in the Himalayas of Nepal. And he's an ascetic. He's a Hindu shaman. And he just does what he wants and trusts that it will work out, and it does. He's my Yoda, pretty much. I met him when I was 21.
Wow.
And, he was always calm and living from a place of real joy, and pretty much sat on a mountaintop in the Himalayas and didn't leave at all during the day, other than like one trek/pilgrimage that we went on together for a couple of weeks. But everything that he needed would magically show up, whether it was food, or he would raise funds for like local temples. Like, he was a big time community organizer and would help to build community spaces.
Okay.
And do things like food drives and clothing drives for the local people. But it was amazing because he didn't really leave his hut. He just sat there and he was really happy and made food for people and told great stories, but somehow it took care of him. So he really taught me about how to allow abundance to come in instead of chasing it. Yeah. To trust that there is abundance and to just tap into it. And, it's something that's not always easy, especially being an entrepreneur. Yeah. Yeah. But honestly, it's his lesson is always there in the back of my mind. Even recently, for example, like, I really needed a bridge loan for Altai with what I'm doing, right? I mean, pretty much funding this mostly on my own right now.
Absolutely.
Outside of the help from my accelerator here. But pretty much, it's like, I really need to create X amount of dollars. And then all of a sudden it showed up without me even having to ask. Like, somebody came to me and said, I really want to put money into your company. Yeah. It was surreal.
Yeah. Spiritual connectivity.
I mean, it doesn't always happen like that, but I feel like the more I allow it and the more I chill out, the more it does happen that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good things happen to those people who wait for it. If you think about, with the challenges that you've had over the last few years, getting the business to this point, kind of moving into this space now where you are connecting people with capital, obviously, to those that can manage it on their behalf. How has that entry point for you been so far into the professional asset management world, really? And I know I've chatted with a few of the folks that you've met that have been the initial kind of entry point for you into this now in the context of Altai, and I kind of get it, and I see you making strong connections with them. But how has that gone for you?
It's going extremely well, but it's also very challenging because I didn't know much about regulation and third-party auditing and what that looks like. And now, I know the industry names, and I've learned a lot over the past couple of years. So it's been a challenging learning curve, but, I'm getting there. But the great thing is it's really about connecting with people.
Yep.
And that's something that I do all the time anyway, even before this role. So it's, about connecting with people, being authentic and listening, you know, and helping them to understand what's happening and break it down to easy terms, especially with blockchain and crypto. Like people have a lot of questions. People have a lot of questions about Bitcoin futures. What does that mean? So I've learned about all these things, and I'm not the world's greatest expert, but I can share the story, and this is where my storytelling skills still apply.
Exactly. And the technical mechanics of it, what I found over the last 3+ years myself, Erin, is just flipping from being what I call, I've been referring to this recently as I felt in 2014 like I was the manager of a Blockbuster video shop, right? And that, we had a bunch of folks that were really good at stacking the videos back on the shelves, but those videos wouldn't be around for much longer. And I had my awakening back then. But all of these things that I held for 20 years in the asset servicing industry, the asset management industry, to be so critically important, which was things around infrastructure, governance, regulation, operations. It was a people business, and it all came down to leadership and how could you get people to work and to perform at the highest level, right? Now being on the other side of it and seeing the propositions from a venture capital perspective, from the perspective of what you're doing, and seeing kind of in my mind compressing all these things such as governance, regulation, operations, infrastructure into a layer. And once you get that right, it should work, right? Now you got to keep monitoring it and make sure that it's appropriate, but it should work. As you grow the business, you're going to have to scale that a bit, but it's something that is manageable. The hardest part is that connectivity with those that can actually perform, right? And those that can actually deliver profits, deliver returns. And being able to use kind of your people skills to identify the and help that be part of your selection criteria on the managers that you're going to place money with. That's a big skill to have, and it seems like that harks all the way back to your 20s, and when you were out there, like you said, with with the Taliban. For lack of a better word.
Hanging out, yeah.
So, no, really cool story. I totally get it. Tell me one thing. You've shared a lot today, Erin. What's something that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
I was going to say the languages that I speak, but you already mentioned it. I guess now I have to go back to the drawing board. I mean, there is one thing that I thought about, but it's more something that applies to a whole population of people, but I'll get to that in a second. But I guess I would say that most people probably don't know that I once did an art installation that got picked up by the New York Times and the Washington Post. Back when I was 23, I was one of the first people doing social media strategy. And it was before it was an actual job title. So over the course of 6 weeks, I got people from all around America to send in about 10,000 pairs of used shoes to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And then I organized it in a clear tower. I can send you a photo later if you want.
Please do.
Is a clear 10-foot tower, and we put it on the Washington Mall during a 500,000 person peace march. And each pair of shoes had a name tag of an Iraqi who was killed in the war in Iraq.
Wow.
How they died and the age. And it was 10 feet high. It was massive.
Wow.
So I did that, and within 6 weeks, from start to finish, got most of the materials donated. Worked with Frank Geary to figure out the size of the box, and yeah, it was something else to show up. I did this from LA, and showed up in Washington D.C. All the shoes were in this basement of an anarchist coffee shop,
right,
out in the ghetto, and we organized it, and yeah, the next day it was like in the headlines worldwide. So that was something.
And what ended up happening to the shoes after that?
It was on display for a while outside of an activist coffee shop called Busboys and Poets.
Yeah.
Started by an Iraqi named Andy Shalal, who's really cool.
Okay.
A big time activist in DC. But the shoes got moldy, so they had to take it down after a couple of years.
I'm sure they did.
So, but the other thing I was thinking about before coming here was kind of like what's something that people don't know about me. Like, I wanted to just say that this is more what a lot of people don't realize, and I'm not sure how many women even realize it, but I know a lot of women can say it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many men realize it, but I have been told over and over again in my life that I cannot do this and I cannot do that because I'm a woman. And it hasn't been said to me directly. Sometimes it has been, but I still get it. Obviously it doesn't faze me, but it's I think it's something to think about, and I'm speaking for all women, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to tie back to finance, because there's been some deep old programming around, women don't know how to deal with money as well as men do.
Yeah.
And it's not true.
No, I mean, well, that's what you get with a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
You know, my sister is a rocket scientist. We talked about this before. And, you know, she's a professor of mechanical engineering. She was on a podcast recently where she talked about this secret trust test that men in senior positions or in positions of influence kind of have. And that if you're a guy, you pass that secret trust test, or at least partially pass it up front. But if you're a woman, you need to spend a lot more time building relationships with people, right? Before you can you pass that trust test. And it's something that I hadn't thought about at all. And that, yes, as a privileged white male, it's different context, and it's one that a lot of people don't understand. We covered a lot today, Erin. We got into a few more topics than I thought we would, but thank you for sharing. I think just what I wanted to say was that in this space in crypto, there seems to be this fast forwarding, if not this acceleration of people's knowledge around the space. That if you've been in this space for 5 years, you've kind of been, well, you know, it's almost like dog years.
Dog years, yes.
And shout out to Herbie, right?
Yeah.
You know, that it's what, 7 times 5 is 35, right? That's a lifetime of a career for people.
Yeah.
And to be in this space for that long with the amount of change that's going on, there is an element of kind of recognition that a lot of folks in traditional finance just don't get, and I'm not sure they will. But you know, let's try to open their eyes a bit more, and obviously that's part of one of the things that I do. So, again, thank you for coming on to the show. It's been great having you here. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, eringrover.com, ERINGROV as in Victor, ER.com, and find all my social media channels there, or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erin. Great to have you on the show.
Money never sleeps, pal.
That does it for this week, folks, and thanks to Erin for opening up her mind to help us figure out why she does what she does. Links and show notes for this episode are on moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, it is highly advisable that you build a relationship with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for editing this podcast. As for me, I increase the odds of startup success. Get in touch through the contact page on norioventures.com, and you could follow Owen on Twitter at OwenFitzgerald9. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!